This week, we Casey is not with us. She is enjoying a well-deserved vacation. Kelly is still out with her new baby. She should be back with us next month, and I'm just realizing we promised last month to bring pictures, and we completely forgot. But Damien is joining us today. And just FYI, for those who are joining us for the first time, my name is Mike Snow. I'm the local SEO enablement manager and evangelist, as I like to joke, because SEO never ends. It's something you have to keep up on. So I try and get you all excited about it as much as I possibly can. And we're joined by Damien, who I will let introduce himself.
I'm Damien. Nice to be here, Mike, and thank you for letting me join. I've been on the Juice a couple of times and always have a good time. I'm the director of market insights in the marketing department at Sochi, so I do the local visibility index report and various research projects and so on. So happy to be here with you.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll be back again real soon. When you do, we're rolling out the CBI. Do you want to talk about that and that coming up? I think that's really interesting. If
Yeah,
you want
that's
to.
a That's a great call out. This will be the third in our annual series of survey reports, which we call the CBI or the Consumer Behavior Index. And so in the past, we've broken some interesting news. We basically survey US consumers about their preferences and behavior around interacting with businesses online when there's a local transaction that might occur, so local search, local social, et cetera. And, we've been able to uncover through the CBI research that younger people are turning to social media in some cases. Preferring it over search engines when looking for recommendations for a place to have lunch or places to visit locally, etc. We've been tracking the rise of AI search. That's going to be a big focus of our research this year. And so that's coming out in a couple of months, and we will definitely be telling you all about it. I'm sure, have a webinar to talk about those results. And yeah, really looking forward to that.
And I'm really looking forward to, I know this year we've split it out into a lot more industry verticals in the questioning rather than have it as a big lump, which I'm really excited about to see because obviously I think we know, and we've been talking about this a lot in the SEO Juice webinar, is that behavior is very different depending on what industry people are searching in. So very interested to see if some of my assumptions are lining up with the reality of what our surveillance participants end up saying. So
Yes, I don't even know yet. We've been spending a lot of time refining the questions. We're just about to gather the results, so it'll be exciting to see what people say.
all right, so moving on today. So we're going to talk industry news. We're going to cover some of the Google webinar highlights. Damien had a webinar with Lisa Landsman. Also cover a little bit on some of Google I/O, which we're not covering a ton because it really, what they talked about affects local, but they didn't really talk about it specifically. And I think a lot more came out of that with your discussion with Lisa, I believe, Damien. So I thought there was some really good information in there. For those who don't know, Google recently launched an AI optimization guide. So we wanted to take a look at that, what Google's saying, how those things line up to stuff we've been saying. And also, one of the things that I think find interesting is they actually debunk a lot of myths around AI optimization. Then we're going to do a spotlight on semantic relevance in relation to our facts guidelines that we spoke about. I think it was maybe two webinars ago. So we'll highlight that. Super really relevant real world example of that semantic relevance in action. Then we'll talk some new categories that have appeared, two that I'm very excited about, and I think a bunch of our customers will be as well. And then just some stuff we caught in the wild and some things coming up. So moving on. Yes, that is a good one, Tim. You're right. Um, so moving on, industry news. First and foremost, there should be a lot of people happy about this. We got confirmation from Google that the bug in review reporting has been fixed. So for those who don't know what's going on or need a refresher, since about January, maybe even a little before, there were widespread reports of Google review discrepancies between what was showing natively on Google Business Profiles and what's appearing in response platforms like Sushi's. Very We found out that it was primarily due to a bug created when Google was trying to stop unauthorized scraping of their APIs. But they confirmed recently that that bug has been fixed. So the reviews that appear on your profiles should now match the reviews that appear within your review management system. If you find that they're not, let your CSM know. We may have to do a farther back pull just to make sure that we've grabbed everything. So if, let's say, something from 5 months ago was caught in because of that bug, and that was released at maybe really far back and we need to pull it again. Hopefully that's not the case, but if you find discrepancies still, please let your CSMs know and we'll look into that. But hopefully this should be welcome news. It's not to say that review moderation isn't still super heavy, that reviews are still being removed, and a whole bunch of other things going on, but this particular piece has been fixed, supposedly. Um, Moving on, speaking of reviews, I was doing some stuff on my Google Maps app on my phone a few weeks back, and I noticed that Google has made it really easy if you're in Maps, even if you're not signed in, to call out a business for breaking the review manipulation policy. So I'll show you what this looks like. So if you go to a listing, actually, let me just go back. If you are starting on a listing, on the bottom, you'll see this little bar that comes up that you can scroll across. If you click, what was it? It's the last one. So more. If you select more and you go to report business conduct, you'll see here if you believe a business is offering incentives in exchange for reviews or pressuring people to leave reviews, you can use this form to report a concern. And so you put in the URL of the location, then you put in your email address, and then you select what that business may be doing, whether that is offering something in exchange for reviews or pressuring people to leave reviews. Once you select one of those, it provides more information, which I found really interesting. Um, Google highlights that evidence goes beyond what you would expect of in-store, right? They actually say that it extends beyond typical in-store behavior to include emails, text, social post, website content, and anywhere that you engage with your customers. So, wanted to highlight this because you'll want to be very careful. I can see this becoming another SEO tactic. The idea, oh, I know my competitor is soliciting reviews, so I'm going to report them. They're going to get, penalized and suspended, and then I'm going to rank above them for a while because they'll have a message on their profile. Be careful, but also it's good to know because if you have competitors that you know are doing this, you could report them as well. I don't know, hey, Damien, any thoughts on this or anything that you've heard that around this? Or
Well, there has been, confusion. We actually touched on this a little bit in the webinar last week with Lisa from Google about, incentivizing reviews and other things that may cause reviews to get flagged as spam. So this isn't directly related to what you're saying, but, we did have a question, for instance. Um, there's rumors floating around about the names of staff members and whether that, just having a staff member's name in your review is going to cause it to get flagged, and, what is spam and what isn't on Google's part. Lisa was able to clarify that just having the name of a staff member should not cause your review to get flagged, but there's a little subtle distinction. You're not supposed to ask them to say specific things when a customer leaves you a review, and that would include asking a reviewer to mention the name of a staff member. So you can't influence what people say in reviews in any explicit way. And again, it's just a matter of understanding where those distinctions lie. You don't put your don't put your your foot on the gas or your finger on the lever or whatever the metaphor might be in any way to influence what consumers are going to do when they leave you a review, and you should be fine.
One more thing related to maps, since we're talking about it, is something that I noticed maybe last week. This curated with Gemini feature that I'm seeing appearing in maps for some food and beverage searches. You can see here I did a search for brunch, and we got like pancake places, waffle places, coffee shops came up with local roasters, cozy corners, dinner spots at waterfront dining, local something else. But wanted to provide some just insights into this. Number one, I noticed that it's appearing typically in like the fourth organic spot in Google Maps. And if you want to optimize for these things, again, right, they're great lists. They're curated by Gemini. So we'll talk a bunch. We're going to talk a bunch about things that Google wants for these. But just wanted to provide some quick guidance around this to try and appear here. Things like uploading photos, they help Google understand your business more. So if you have outdoor seating, make sure you have photos that show that. Make sure you've uploaded your full menu to Google. If you want to be found for pancake places, make sure your menu says you have them and have photos of them. Be social, publish posts with copy and images that align with what you want to appear for. So if you want to be a waterfront dining, talk about come in and, have, enjoy our waterfront dining, whatever that is, talk about it, right? Make it easy for customers, leave reviews. Again, Google understands a lot about your business. Again, something Damien's going to cover in a minute. Through the reviews that you say, it helps Google define the vibe of the place. And then make sure your local landing pages include this content because although Google does have access to a lot of this information, it doesn't have access to it in the way that it can just search the database and pick it. It's getting it through different fan out queries and searches that we'll talk about again in a minute. But you need to make sure that information is everywhere and consistent.
I
Um,
just think it's also interesting to point out that Google is pushing the Gemini brand a lot harder than they did a year ago.
yeah.
There have been things like this, the sort of page organized by AI or whatever they used to call that feature. But now they're just calling out, they're really fighting to build that as a brand in competition with ChatGPT and Claude, and you're going to see that name popping up a lot more, I think.
That's a really good point because yeah, these curated lists have been there for a while as little carousels and typical and traditional search, and so yeah, that I think that the branding is what's really interesting there. Yeah, Damien, you want to?
Yeah, so this is just an update letting everyone know that the last Google core update, the update to the search algorithm that was called the May 2026 core update, is now complete. As is pretty typical with these, Google pushes out core updates every few months. Usually there's, three or four in a given year. It's not really always the same, but it's relatively predictable. They usually take roughly 2 weeks to complete. Some of them take longer. Very typical that Google doesn't really explain in detail what's happening in a core update, but it generally has to do with organic SEO. So not so much local search. There's an indirect impact on local search whenever any algorithm update occurs because local search results are impacted by organic search and vice versa. So, there might be some kind of minor impact if your website was affected, but typically these updates affect publishers who are trying to, gain rankings in organic in order to get traffic for queries where there might be a likelihood of spam or content that needs to be where Google needs to adjust the algorithm so that it's surfacing the best kinds of content. In the past, Google has said this is specifically an update targeting spam, or there was the helpful content update recently, which was meant to boost content that was seen to be more helpful, etc. But as the takeaway for local businesses says at the bottom, usually there's not an impact on local SEO that's particularly measurable. Usually we're not going to see that anything has changed. If anything, core updates might be a reason to pay attention to your performance of your your corporate URL and see if there's anything that you might need to adjust. But if you're following SEO best practices, you generally should be fine. Usually these are, going to be targeting bad actors more than anything.
Yeah. And the only time I see dips is usually if you have pages that aren't well optimized, that have issues, they could get caught up because the algorithm is looking for typically low quality pages tend to be more spammy. And so that can happen. So and lastly, I like this one because I think it rolls really well into the next bit that you're going to talk about, Damien. So
Yeah, so we are noting here that DuckDuckGo is getting a little bit more popular with installs up 30%. This is following and seems to be correlated with the fact that Google is pushing AI and AI overviews more and more in a way that people, some people may feel a little bit of fatigue around. As you can see in the middle, the US app installs went up about 18% week over week from May 20 to May 25th compared to the previous period. There was a sustained growth for 6 consecutive days, peaking at 30% on May the 25th. And iOS was even higher, as you can see there. So when this sort of thing happens, and for years, DuckDuckGo and others have been sort of secondary contenders, distant secondary contenders in
right.
comparison with Google. It's worth, paying attention to or being aware of the fact that some users are going to express a preference like this. DuckDuckGo, I have a neighbor who uses it, and you probably do too.
My wife uses it.
Yeah, people who are especially privacy focused find it to be a product that meets their needs, and that's totally fine. But in proportion, this doesn't mean that there's some major change in your strategy that's necessarily called for. In fact, it's a good reason to reinforce that the things you're already doing are hopefully going to be impacting DuckDuckGo results to the extent that that's important, such as so the basic search engine for DuckDuckGo is powered by the Bing index. So if you're well optimized for Bing searches, then you're fine for organic, where you should be. And then as for local, DuckDuckGo uses Apple Maps. So as let's hope that you're optimizing your Apple Maps listings, which includes, of course, very prominent Yelp content and content from some other places. Yelp is the most common. And so if you're doing all of those things, then you should be covered with DuckDuckGo as well.
Thank you, Damien. So let's go into your highlights. Excited to talk about this.
Yeah, so we had a lot to say, and we went over some of it kind of quickly last week in the Google webinar with Lisa Landsman that we were mentioning earlier. So I wanted to kind of go back over some of those things and offer a little bit of additional commentary. And Mike has I'm sure thoughts on some of these things as well. Some of this touches on I/O. These were some stats that were announced at Google I/O a couple of weeks ago that AI Overviews, for instance, has 2.5 billion monthly active users now. Of course, it's hard to avoid it. It shows up in more than half. I can't remember what the stat is. More than half of search results certainly are surfacing in AI Overview now. It might be as high as like 80%.
I'm
So
sure it does seem more than 50% at this point. So.
yeah, I'm trying to remember what the recent stat I heard, but it's hard to avoid. Hard, you can't turn it off, can you? So you're going to see those AI overviews. For Gemini, the monthly active user stat is up to 900 million. For AI mode, maybe a little more significant. People are actually clicking over to utilize AI mode, which I know Google is making it easier and easier to do that, but still, it's a choice that you have to make. And so there are 1 billion monthly active users, according to Google there. And then Lisa made a big point of the stat on the lower right, which is a way, you might say, a way to convey how up to date and accurate and fresh Google is or tries to be. The stat is that there are 1 billion facts uploaded to search every single minute. So, Google has a lot of scale, but the scale is also growing. And I think we can observe that whereas a couple of years ago, we might have wondered whether OpenAI would overtake Google in the AI space. Google is probably pretty good. They seem to have saved their market position, and they are now in a growth position.
Yeah, and it
Um,
helps that they can shove all this stuff right in front of your traditional search, so people that are AI curious can get to it real easy.
Yes, I mean you could have predicted that this would be the outcome. It's kind of like Facebook buying Instagram to defend market position. These incumbent players that have a lot of power are able to do those things. And Google was already a pretty strong AI contender. They just needed to get their act together and start releasing features, which they are now doing. And the big announcement in search at I/O was this new autocomplete feature within search. You can see it demonstrated in this animation here, where you start typing and people are typing, longer queries, but it's also going to suggest to you based on AI, based on, Gemini technology, what you might want to search for in more detail and allow you to accept those suggestions without having
I,
to type
I don't
them.
know about you, but as soon as this was announced as a big announcement, the rest of AI or the whole IO was just underwhelming to me. The idea that like, okay, autocomplete, if that's your big announce, I'm not really whelmed, you
I
know?
mean, there's been autocomplete for a long time, hasn't there? So
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, the AI powered autocomplete is or is not a big deal. I mean, I think the proof is in the usefulness. I
Yeah.
find autocomplete like in emails and so on, more annoying than useful, frankly, right now, right now. But who knows? It may become something that we are happy to have.
But it'll help drive this stat up more, I
Yeah,
guess.
certainly so. And so this is an older stat, and I think this is also, growing. But this was external research that says that the average search query is or used to be 4 words, and that with AI, it's about 23 words. We certainly know, and we've been talking about this a lot, that users are asking longer and harder questions, such as in this example, and that AI is encouraging that behavior, and that sort of feeds into the behavior growing even more over time, and that we do need to optimize for longer tail, more specific, more detailed kinds of queries. Also announced at I/O and kind of related to this is that queries are not only getting more detailed, but they're pushing more and more into multimodality. So in the example on the left, this is an I/O announcement that you can actually use more than one picture in combination to search for something. This is in a shopping context where I like this dress on the left, but I want it to be in the color on the right. So I'm uploading both pictures, indicating what I'm looking for. Search result is able to interpret, the intent here correctly and surface shopping options for me that are a combination of both of those things. That's not so much local in nature, although you could see there could be a local tie if some of these items are available in stores near me. The one on the right is a little bit more obviously local. This weekend planner feature, which was specifically called out, one of the few things IO usually has a whole section on local updates, Google Maps updates, was not the case this year, but this is one feature in particular that strongly implies a local angle, because if I'm using AI mode to construct a weekend planner tool for myself, again, Google is pushing heavily into agentic. There are going to be tools and widgets and features and agents that you can configure within search. All of this is kind of coming soon still, But one example is this weekend planner idea where obviously local parks and recreational activities and so on could be represented by Google Business Profiles as you see at the bottom.
It'll be interesting to see if it has the same problem as you were having with the Ask Maps, where it was giving like outdated things and events and going on, or
Yeah, I mean that's true. And when I joined the Juice a couple of weeks ago, I offered that example. I give Google credit that when problems like that occur, that they are kind of like transitional,
yeah.
that
Okay.
probably it'll get better over time. Um, so this departs a little bit from I/O, but one of the things that Lisa really emphasized was that search results are more visual, more insightful, more actionable these days, that you're going to see search results that surface video content in carousels, as you can see on the left-hand side, that reconfigure the content in your business profiles and your website into consumable chunks like this popular dishes vibe and known for, making it easier for consumers to get the answers that they're looking for. And then on the right-hand side, this is something we're going to dive into a little bit further, the featuring of Google Post content, as well as potentially content from social profiles that you plug into your Google profile, being featured more prominently in the profile itself. This is the so-called what's happening feature, which is utilizing Google Posts in that case.
And I was very excited to see, although we don't have all the stats yet, it was nice to see they provided stats on how well engagement is for these kind of posts that have tonight posts in them. So these event and offer posts are obviously being engaged with. It makes sense. I think we've been saying that forever. Like if I was looking for something and saw, hey, there's a deal, then I would be really excited to maybe check them out over someone who wasn't having one, right? So for those who wanted some stats, here's some stats.
Yeah, yeah. So that's true. I mean, it is true and has always been true that Google can manipulate the placement of Google posts at kind of at will, and that if they become more prominent, they're likely to have more of an impact, right? So that's not exactly rocket science, but it is useful to know
Yeah,
that
exactly.
when you do get placement at in this prominent what's happening position, you can see a couple of different ways that that might appear to the end user on the right here. That it does increase engagement for these, posts by Google says by 9%. So, obviously something that you should be doing. Yeah.
And it was interesting too to see. I know I've been saying again that Google doesn't have access to all your posts, but they are definitely, it would seem, get them. They're sent back to them. The information with those posts is coming back via their fan out queries that they do, and they're taking that information and translating it into something that is helping the business, right? Letting them know that in this instance they host a weekly watch party Monday night. That's coming from a post. And I believe out of this is, I think, where Google started explicitly saying something that we had been hearing unofficially, which is they are taking posts more into consideration. Actually, no, that came from Casey, right? I think Casey went to an event in Chicago, which was just before I/O, and or no, I guess it wasn't. That was someone else who was in Boston. Got some unofficial insight that posts are being taken into account more. Can't
Yeah.
remember. We've had our team have been to a lot of events and gotten a little snippets of information here and there, but this is seeing that in action, which is nice
Well,
to.
I think this one is potentially even more interesting than the what's happening, that this post content is being featured in certain kinds of AI results, is, it's pretty exciting because it's an even more it's not competing with a lot of other information. It's basically saying if you're looking for a place for an official watch party, here's your place,
Mhm.
right? So you could imagine that this is a pretty high conversion potential kind of a placement, and therefore one that you should be competing for if that's the kind of thing that you offer. And we should also mention, Mike, that I think you guys talked about this before, but uh, the what's happening placement and presumably other placements like the one we're looking at here are used to be just for restaurants, but now it's been expanded to all leisure categories, which would include any kind of local entertainment spot or a place where you might plan a weekend,
Yeah.
you know,
I've
uh,
also seen it in like spas or beauty salons, like places like that. So yeah, good point to highlight. One thing I just thought about in the instance on the left where these are appearing within AI results, theoretically, the fact that they're crawling these and it's not just a feature like on the right where a specific type of post has to appear, theoretically, anything you are publishing as a post could be used if it's relevant and highlighted with an overview. So if you're someone's looking for a service and you have a post about that service, theoretically, Google could grab copy and content about that service in trying to describe your business and highlighting something specific about you.
that's
So
true. Although it's interesting that these examples are more of the what's happening tonight type.
yeah. And I
Mhm.
think part of that is I know Lisa is more in the leisure space. Like that's usually who she
Right.
talks to a lot more. So that's potentially why. But I think it's something we need to look at because I would assume
Totally.
in this instance on the left, that means any post could be used.
This is a great call out where we ought to do a little more research and, see exactly, because if it's the full range of post types, then wow, that's a big opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, I
And
see a question, by the way,
uh,
from Valerie, who's asking
yes.
if there are any updates on analytics for posts. As far as I know, we don't yet have post
Yeah.
analytics live. Is that
I
true?
think
Okay.
what Kara said ahead of time, wait till next month with the laugh is exactly it. That's basically what we've been getting since the beginning of the year is it's coming, it's
It's
coming, it's
coming.
coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
as
That,
soon as it's available via the API, like our product team, I'm going to be all over them to get this on, and Casey and all of us, I think, because I think it's really important to understand the visibility. Unfortunately, it's not going to come with engagement metrics. Those I think you have to track by using UTMs and like who is clicking and engaging with them.
right.
But it is good. We
And
are.
to be
Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Mike, and to be clear, this is a delay on Google's part. We will act quickly once that's available to us.
But there, I know it was highlighted that it's appearing in a lot of other places, and things that we've highlighted how it appears within Google Maps and the photo carousel when it's relevant, these social media carousels, which we've been covering for I feel like forever. And this kind of leads me to one other thing. I want to take a pause for a minute again and kind of highlight kind of what I am most proud of in what we've been doing with this SEO juice, which is really following the social media component of local search since day one. I think the first thing we covered in the first webinar we did was about social media links and Google Posts. And the fact that we've been kind of sticking with that, the fact that we did a study with Google last year that they continue to promote, which I'm so proud of. The idea that we did this, we had a theory that we've been talking about since day one when those links were added, that those signals should have an effect in local search. Google came to us with a test, the opportunity for a test. We figured, let's prove this thing we've been saying. And I was a little worried because I'm like, all right, now I have to put the data where my mouth has been. And the fact that we literally were able to see this and that it didn't just come from us, it came from our partner, Painting with a Twist, was really validating. And so, for those who don't know, I actually just republished an overview of this study on Sochi Central, and it's also in our Sochi blog. But it's if you want to know more about this test that we did with them, but just adding active social links, keeping them active, we saw an improvement. Painting with a twist saw an improvement. I think it was a really great story. We could talk about it for an hour. Instead, I'll drop a link into the chat later for everybody and make sure you can get to this. Sorry to stop you down, Damien. It's just something
No,
that
that's fine. I mean, the obviously the big takeaway is that adding social links to your Google profiles increases your Google search impressions, increases the conversion of those profiles with increased web clicks and phone calls. And I believe you guys also found that there was some increase in activity on the social profiles themselves.
mm,
So the benefits are numerous, and that's, worth underlining again. And also just saying thank you to our partner, Painting with a Twist, for participating in that with us and helping us to demonstrate the value there.
yeah. Um, so moving on to a few other features.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. That's me.
Yeah, and that's fine. I know we probably should
No,
wrap this.
I just forgot that I was still going here. So, yes, this is just a point of emphasis about how the content that you publish in your Google business profiles and your website shows up in so many different Google services on search and maps. So on the left-hand side, we see a search for soup dumplings that's going to showcase a result that is discover through photos, it's called, where you can get to menu photos, which will then allow you to get to the restaurant that offers that dish. So, obviously another reason to have compelling photos. In the middle, you can see Tucker Pup's Pet Resort being highlighted with service details that are coming from their website within an AI mode result. So every reason to have that differentiating content published and showcased clearly on your website so that AI mode can pick that up. And then on the right-hand side, you can see similarly, a consistent listing of service features in your Google business profiles will allow them to be surfaced if that's the way the consumer is encountering your information. And again, providing them with the same kinds of answers so that they will choose you over the competition. Um, Here, this is a highlight of the power of reviews in an AI context. You can see some really compelling examples here of how reviews are playing a central role when AI is trying to recommend a business to you based on things that you may have been looking for. I might have asked for a night spot. I don't think I would have asked for a night spot that is described as industrial chic, but somebody might have asked for something like that. And therefore, Google is using reviews to surface something that matches my query, or you're going to sometimes see examples where it's going to match a bit of personal history that you've shared in the past that Google is going to look for reviews to find, in my case, places that are good to go on the weekend with with children, for example, because I've searched for those things before. In whatever case, Google's going to use restructure content from reviews to give you a consumer vetted version of what this business is like. And so that content is really being showcased in some powerful ways.
If you don't mind, Amy, I'm gonna kind of rush through the end of this because we have about 20 minutes left and some
No
things to get
problem.
to. At the end of this, I will highlight this. I don't know if I kind of sprung this on Damien today. I noticed some of the things that Lisa left with on things to optimize for things like mastering the basics, telling your story, engaging with the community. I'm not going to read through all these. You'll be able to get these afterwards. This focusing on valuable content, which I think we went through some of this when Lisa did a presentation last year on things you should be doing in general, showcasing experience, cultivating reviews, embracing transparency. All these things, though, line up really well with our facts model that we talked about, that we've been talking about. This idea that you're trying to create fresh content that's engaging with the community, answering questions in real time, right? Responding to reviews, posting updates. The being an authority and showing how you are more of an authority than someone else, right? Telling your story, showing how you stand out and what makes you different, your unique services, the consistency piece, mastering the basics. We talked about algorithm changes and what could get you called out as spam or get you deranked. Part of that is being consistent within the way pages should be set up properly, and then the content being visible everywhere and consistent. The cultivating reviews, the ensuring that your page is crawlable and that you're focusing on the content for the people. Like all these things line up, and it's one of the reasons we came up with this model. I think some of it may have been influenced by this from last year. I think I took a look at this and what Google was asking for and what all the studies were showing, and that's one of the reasons we tried to combine this into a nice small format, which we'll talk about a little more in a minute. I'll define this in a second. Actually, not after the next segment, but I sorry to cut that one short. I want to make sure we get to these last few things, Davian. But if the team could drop in, if there's a link to the webinar, I'm sure we have it recorded and up for people who want to know more and hear what Lisa actually said on a lot of this stuff. and get, because there was a lot more information that was part of the webinar. We just tried to grab some of it that I think fit our theme for today.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the things I wanted to highlight, and I'm not going to go through all of it because I think it's probably more valuable for you all to look at it yourselves and understand this. But Google released a guide for optimizing your website for generative AI features. So for those who don't know, Google has this site, Google Search Central. I have the website link here. Um, and it's set up for developers and businesses to kind of get a sense of what Google calls best practices when it comes to setting up your pages. There's a ton of documents in here. Things not even just on what constitutes good SEO, what constitutes a good SEO. They give you guidelines. I think they put up recently on how to pick a good SEO and what to look out for. But one of the things, what I wanted to talk about today, because I think it's really important and it's what everyone wants to talk about, is they added optimizing for generative AI. So they provided guidelines specifically about that. So I was going to highlight some of those today. At a real high level, I'm not going to read everything. You'll have access to this afterwards, so you'll be able to read it in more detail. The links here to read all of this in more detail, but wanted to cover just some of the highlights. So, in optimizing your website for generative AI features on Google search, one of the first things Google says is SEO still relevant for generative AI search? And this is one of those areas where I'm proud, like since we brought Kelly into these meetings last June, no, July, the reason we wanted to do that is because we wanted to redefine what SEO is. Because a search engine, it's not Google engine optimization, it is search engine optimization. And so wherever you are searching, whatever you are using to search, you need to optimize for. And if you're doing it in one place, it is good for all places. And so even Google says, in short, yes. The best practices for SEO continue to be relevant because our generative AI features are rooted in our core search ranking and quality systems, right? And so the techniques for AI highlight the content from our search index. So basically, they're highlighting the fact that a lot of these same principles are in place because Google, the AI systems, Gemini, is using traditional Google system like RAG and these fairy query fan out techniques. I cannot speak. Trying to speak fast. Um, and so these are techniques, traditional techniques like RAG is. I'm sure Damien, you could talk about this forever, because you know a lot
Well,
better than
basically, very briefly,
I. Okay,
RAG is the connection between AI and search. So when AI needs a contemporary answer, a fresh answer, it goes and asks a search engine, and the technical term for that is retrieval augmented generation. That's really all it is.
gotcha. Thank you for that. That was a nice, simple one. And then the query fan out is what we've talked about in that piece. That LLMs do that extra bit, right? They do the traditional search you would do, but then break down the search into all these related searches so they can get and provide a more thorough, full answer. Um, so then Google goes on to say, what about AEO and GEO? And they basically say they're terms to describe work specifically focused on AI search experiences. But from Google's perspective, optimizing for generative AI search is optimizing for the search experience, right? And thus it's still all SEO. Um, so they say to apply a foundation of best practices. So really what they're trying to do is just reframe these best practices so people understand that the things you're doing for AI are the same things you should be doing for traditional SEO anyway, right? Basically what we've been saying. So there really isn't this need to rename. It's just think about it a little bigger now. And then what you're doing is helpful everywhere. So one of the biggest takeaways for me is this idea, and you probably might have read about this recently, is this idea of commodity versus non-commodity content. They talk about creating non-commodity content, so unique, valuable, good content. And so this non-commodity content does a few things. One, it provides a unique point of view, right? AI systems look for something unique that stands out, right? And if you're talking about that and you provide this in-depth experience, then it's more likely to be highlighted. And I think there are a bunch of SEOs that have been trying to discredit the way AI provides answers by creating like fake sites or what were some of the things like so and so SEO is also like really good at kayaking or something. I don't know. There was a whole bunch of things that were put in there where there were unique bits of content. And the way I look at that is not that it discredits what's going on within AI, that looks for garbage answers. What it highlights is looking for unique answers and a unique viewpoint on something. And so I think that's the takeaway here, not that, oh, you can trick it. Well, you can trick it because people aren't doing the right things right now. The more people that provide the right content, the harder it becomes to trick. And so this is one of the things that they say is this non-commodity content is something that is more specific than commodity content, which is like listicles, right? Something that anyone can create that exists everywhere. You want to create something that isn't commoditized, it's something to actually inform. Um, Beyond that, they go on to say build and maintain a clear technical structure, follow those best practices. And lastly, which I found really interesting is where appropriate, AI can use product listings, so things like your Merchant Center and Merchant Center feeds, which probably goes back to that example you gave Damien from the webinar where it showed like putting the dress and the fabric to the color together, and it comes out with a bunch of examples. If you're in Merchant Center, you're more likely to get a local recommendation, and
Mhm.
then also your Google business profiles. So. One thing, myth busting, they also added a section about myths, things that you shouldn't have to worry about. There's a lot of AEO and GEOs are suggesting hacks. And I will say a lot of these hacks will be suggested by the AIs if you ask them what you should do because they're just sourcing what everyone else is saying out there. So it's really good to understand what Google's saying. One of the other reasons Google's doing this is so you don't focus on things that just aren't important, or if they do anything, it's like inches, not yards, and that's really what you want. But things like LLMS text files, we've been saying for a while, they're kind of not needed. I know there's some conflicting information about developer guidelines actually talking about LLMS text files, but I think it's more in context of just letting systems know what they are. Like these appear, do we need to do anything with them or not? I think what's going to happen with these things is the fact that there's so much news about them being an SEO or GEO LLMO play is that the LLMs then understand that those are tricks and tend to skip them, is what I found. LLMs are really good at finding tricks and understanding what hacks are being used and then ignoring them.
One of the points on this item is that Google itself does utilize LLMs.txt files, which sounds like a contradiction to what they're saying here. But I think the important context in this document is that they're saying LLMs.txt won't help you become more visible in AI results. It may be useful for other things. But in this specific, if your target is to be more AI visible, Google is going to utilize whatever content you have and the helpfulness of that content, the uniqueness of that content. All of that is more important than the format.
Yeah. Another one, chunking content. I've read this about this a lot, and Google says there's no requirement to break your chunks into tiny pieces. Sometimes shorter or longer pages can work depending on your audience and the subject matter. So it really, I think, is about just providing, again, good, helpful content that's easy to read and makes sense. Couple other things, rewriting your content just for AI systems. You don't need to do that. I mean, AI trained on traditional web doesn't need to do that. It will catch all those old tricks like having a bunch of near me stuff and like popular queries and things like that. I've noticed LLMs are really good at noticing those gaming the system. So just come up with traditional, really helpful pages, seeking inauthentic mentions. That's another one. LLMs are really good at identifying incentivized reviews and things like that. Over focusing on structured data. And here's the thing, Google was clear to say that it's not needed for AI. However, it's a good idea to continue using it as part of your overall SEO strategy. I've always said, although it's not a ranking factor, if Google doesn't understand your page when it hits it, structured data can help it understand, and by not including it, it could create a negative factor, essentially. Um, Next steps to focus on, again, they just say apply best practices for SEO, create non-commodity content, prioritize effective SEO strategies, and explore agentic experiences. They're fine about AI and using agentic products. They just want them to be used thoughtfully and not shut your brain off and just put out whatever comes out, right? And lastly, something that I just wanted to, again, pause one more time to say thanks for trusting us. Google added a little something about getting outside advice and saying there's plenty of advice, and while some is helpful, others may misinterpret or make claims about what Google says. In general, good advice either qualifies claims as opinion based on data or experience or backs it up by citing official Google guidance. I feel like our advice and stuff we've talked about has been very consistent and it has been backed up by Google over and over again. And so, again, I thank you for trusting us and showing up again and again to hear these things because obviously, hopefully, you're seeing that as well. Um, one more thing before we go, actually, two more things. One, I'm going to some new categories, and this one other thing, really quick. Wanted to show you a really cool trick that shows, especially for, if you're a food and beverage customer, why it's really important to have your menu content on your page and to describe what it is you're offering. So we talked again previously about facts. This idea that content, anything you're doing, should be fresh, show authority, be consistent, be trustworthy, and have semantic relevance in some way. Semantic relevance being that additional context to the things you're offering. So, in this example, just saying you're a bank doesn't mean they're going to know that you're serving small businesses and you have these checking accounts and loans. They need more information on, okay, but what is the breadth of those things? And you need to be relevant in some way to what the problem is being solved. So I wanted to get to the example here. I was doing some experiments just to make sure that we have a lot of customers that embed Olo menus on their local pages. And I wanted to make sure that even if a menu item wasn't on the screen in the carousel at the time, that it was being indexed by the page and that Google or LLMs did see that content. And what I found showed absolutely, and in fact, it does some really cool things. So let's say it's getting close to lunch here. It's almost 11. I might start thinking about what I want to eat today. I want a teriyaki bowl. I like those now and again. One of the things I don't like is some places use the darker meat that can be a little fatty. I like more of white meat teriyaki bowls. So I'm going to look for white meat teriyaki bowl in Huntington Beach. When I click on that, oops, shoot, I clicked the wrong area because, hold on. Okay, here we go. So I click on this and I search white meat teriyaki bowl in Huntington Beach. Hopefully this works right. And so the AI overview, thinking here, comes up with Teriyaki Madness as a top option, specifically offering chicken breast teriyaki bowl, hand-trimmed white meat, stir-fried veggies, rice, and noodles. You can see Teriyaki Madness shows up here. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. They show up down here where it says their website mentions white meat and teriyaki bowl. I should mention Teriyaki Madness does have an Olo menu on their page. They show up number one in organic search results, and when I click on it, it goes directly to this menu item in their Olo menu carousel. And you can see right here, hand-trimmed chicken breast, a little extra semantic relevance, white meat. It defines it even further. And so basically they've owned not only the AI overviews, organic search, and traditional search. And yes, there are other factors that go into that. There could be someone in the area that's more prominent in it, has more likes, is known for that. But in general, just having that in there provides a lot of additional context on your page about what it is you offer when someone's looking for something very specific. Um, I included a video of that in here as well, just in case that didn't work out. But if you think about it, you can extend that to really anything. If you have products, having a popular product carousel, having a services carousel, whatever that is, having that information, having the what it is you offer, whether it's a product or a service or a dish, and then having additional context about it. Wrapping up in the last couple minutes that we have, some checkbox optimization opportunities here. Actually, let me just make this slideshow again. I'm really excited about this first category that got added here, Smoothie Shop. I think we mentioned 6 months ago or so, we had been talking to our partners at Google to try and get a bunch of categories added that we thought were long overdue. Things like Smoothie Shop, trampoline park, assisted stretching, mobile dog grooming, a few others. The first one has finally appeared. We're really excited about this Smoothie Shop. We have a lot of customers that are in this space. The traditionally what's been available is Juice Shop, which isn't quite right because most smoothie shops don't really offer primarily juice, right? It's primarily smoothies and other things. And so this more properly aligns with what it is they offer, and we're really excited to see this out. And Google knows that juice shops will be changing it to smoothie shops. So if you're a customer, if you're going to change this, we are in contact with Google to make sure that if there are any re-verification issues, they'll be looked at very quickly. Another one that was just released as well is home care service. This is great because we have, again, a lot of home care customers and prospects. They traditionally, home care service have had to use home care health service, which isn't quite right because they don't necessarily provide health services. So it never quite aligned, and it also competed with home healthcare service. So this new service better defines a lot of these type of customers. So again, we're excited to be able to see this coming as well. Um, and that is all for that. Just something really dumb I caught in the wild, by the way. I don't know if you've seen this. Apparently, Google has signed deals with Dua Lipa and some other people, I believe, too. I don't know if you know Damien. But to provide lists in cities they go to of their favorite things. And then there's like a little icon of them that appears when you're doing searches. I actually, although this said check out the list, I clicked on it and it didn't bring me to anything. So I don't know how well it works. And I think I put very sarcastically in a post that I put up on LinkedIn that it's a great use of developer time versus giving Gemini access to the full Google database. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of the end of it. Damien, do you have any parting thoughts on things?
Gosh, I'm not sure where to start, but I guess I'll just react to the celebrity thing in Google Maps. There have been curated lists from, restaurant recommendation sites and things like that that have shown up before. But that's the first example I know of as of a like celebrity collab. But there are, Google has always been kind of on the fringes of social, seeing what it can do to grow in that area. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the kind of thing that they, did a little bit more of over time.
And to be fair, you brought up something that we didn't talk about this month, but we'll probably talk about next month, especially if Kelly's coming back. I think it's a better time, which is the idea that Google is announced these brand kind of pages where they can be a little more social and interactive. Um,
Yeah, it's a weird thing. So it's called search profiles, I believe is the term. And basically what you're able to do as a brand is claim a page that you can share content related to your social media profiles in Google listings, in Google search results. It's like a knowledge panel that you can control. So, we're trying to learn more about it ourselves, but it is a kind of unexpected development, but again, one more example of Google pushing into that social direction.
So I know our time. If you are just joining us for the first time this month, you can get all of our back episodes either in Soci U or on YouTube. We have links here to get to those. Additionally, Soci Central is a place to get updates in between these Google or these webinars. I try and post as much as I can on there. I've been a little slack lately, but more to come there. And then lastly, if you're coming to Reimagine, hopefully you will be coming to Reimagine in October. We're going to be doing a live SEO Juice breakfast, which will be fun. It'll be the first time we're doing this live in front of everybody. So we hope you will join. We have some really interesting people coming. Definitely click on this, learn more. We'll be highlighting more of what's coming in the weeks and months to come. So thank you all for joining, and thank you for those who've been joining for the last 2 years. We will see you next time, and this recording will be available in the next few days along with the deck. Thanks. And thank you, Damien, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.